All right. Well, welcome to the River of Ideas, the podcast about greener cities and cleaner water. I'm Adam Flett, the Communications and Outreach Specialist here at the Mississippi Watershed Management Organization. I'm here today with Ray Ruiz Jr., the founder and executive director of Baztec Incorporated. Ray, thanks for being here.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, man.
Absolutely.
It's good to see you always. It's good. I appreciate the opportunity to be here, and thank you for the invite, man. I'm excited to be here. It's awesome.
Yeah, we're really excited to have you.
Thank you.
Ray and I met a few years ago, actually just across the river here.
Yes.
And I can affectionately say that I think him and I clicked right away on how outreach happens or should happen around this type of stuff.
It reminded me of like Step Brothers, the movie.
Yeah.
Like, you want to go do karate?
Yeah.
It was one of those things, dude, for sure.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate your passion for outreach and how engaged you are. And we just kind of, you're right, we just had this synergy, man. So, it was great.
It's really led to a great partnership between Baztec and MWMO. And most recently there was an event this weekend with
Yes, there was.
Esperanza United.
Esperanza United, yes.
How'd that go?
It was great. When we do these events, the weather's always tricky.
Sure.
And number one thing is safety for the families. Mm-hmm. And it turned out great. Like, we had families. It was iffy because they're like, should I go? Should I?
Yeah.
Some folks just ended up coming a little late, but we ended up with like 8 or 9 families.
Oh, that's great.
And it was a great turnout. It was a lot of people there. And it rained a little bit, but just enough it was so comfortable. People were not like drenched, and we had the gazebo, we had the shelter.
Yeah.
So, but people wanted to get out fishing. They didn't care if it was raining, man.
That's great.
It was just like, they were like, are we going to go fishing?
Yeah.
I'm under the shelter, like with my rain suit. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. We're here for fishing, but they were ready to go, man.
That's awesome.
So it was great. It was a good time.
Good to hear. Yeah. Before we get into Baztec, I thought I'd just ask you to say a little bit about yourself and your background, and about your background around here.
Sure. Yeah. So I grew up in Chicago, Illinois, born and raised there. Moved here to the Twin Cities in '98 to attend college at the University of Minnesota for undergrad and graduate school. And a lot of people don't know this, but one of the main reasons I had scholarships to other universities, and I was very blessed for those opportunities. Yeah. But I always knew ever since I was a kid, ever since I was a little boy, that I used to watch the Outlanders, Gary Roach, Babe Winkleman, the Linder brothers and whatnot. And I wanted to be one of those guys. And I asked my dad one day, I was like, hey, Dad, do you think I could do that? I was already fishing, and my dad's like, absolutely. And not only can you do it, but you can probably do it at a differently because you speak Spanish.
Yeah.
And then that really installed a lot of confidence. And when I talk to folks in the community, that's something that like no one asks you that and stuff like that, and I don't share that. Yeah. But it's something that I'm more comfortable talking about now because I think it's important. It's important to like listen to kids and what they want to do, and if they have a passion or they're obsessed like I was with fishing, when I was a little kid, like for my birthdays, my dad would be like, oh, what do you want? You want pizza? Do you want a toy? I want to go to the sports show, man.
Yeah.
I want to go meet the pros. I want to go meet like the great, Gary Klein, and Rick Clunn. And people don't like, who are these people? It's like the Michael Jordan of fishing, basically. Cool. Yeah. And I got to meet those guys.
Wow, really?
Yeah. So my dad, I was a little kid, man.
Yeah.
But that's what I wanted to do. So growing up in Chicago, it was a rough neighborhood, man. It was really rough. It was a lot of violence. It was a lot of gangs, a lot of. My high school, I went to a high school that was metal detectors.
Oh, yeah.
And, when I'm in schools and I talk about my background, I said, when I used to walk to school, I would get assaulted or I would get shot at.
Wow.
And I still had to go to school and perform.
Yeah.
After, you imagine that? And I think about it now and I'm just like, man, and I never told my parents because I didn't want to worry them. And it was one of those things where you had to grow up fast and you had to grow up tough.
Yeah.
And I that's why this work is so important, because there's a lot of kids out there that are going through that, and maybe fishing is a way, not necessarily out, but something they can do they could refocus on something positive.
Sure.
Even when things aren't going really well for them.
Yeah.
Like they were, like, I'm sure things in your life sometimes were ups and downs, right? Yeah. You're walking to school and some knucklehead assaults you or shoots at you. It's like, what do you, how do you get through that?
Yeah.
How do you process that, So with that said, I had really loving parents, man. My dad and my mom, they're great people, and that's why I learned how to fish. My dad was an avid angler and hunter from Mexico, so he was really good because that's how he ate.
Yeah, wow.
And when you're starving, man, my dad tells me, he's like, listen, man, when you're hungry, you don't miss.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
When you're hungry, you put the arrow through the fish, or you put the projectile through the animal to make sure you eat. And that's something that he always instilled, like the stewardship in us. Like, don't take more than you're going to eat. Give back to the land, protect the land, make sure it's clean. And I was 4 or 5 years old, and he was telling me this stuff. So again, going back to this work, that's why it's so important, because the things that my father has taught me, now I'm teaching it. So it's generational, it's through my father, through me, and now to a new generation.
Yeah.
So man, through high school, came here to the university, and I met a bunch of guys who like to fish.
Sure.
And we just kind of, like you and I clicked. I clicked with these guys, and they would invite me out fishing, and they were surprised that a city boy from Chicago knew how to fish. And they're like scratching their heads, like, how do you know all these techniques, man? And I was like, dude, I grew up fishing, and I would go down to Paducah, Kentucky, and fish the farm ponds down there. That's how I really got good at bass fishing.
Okay.
Actually.
Wow.
Yeah. I got schooled by some of the best guys, and gals, that they really educated me on fishing and angling, and really not only techniques, but like what was happening in the ecosystem. Like all those intricacies, and I was fascinated by that. That's man.
Awesome.
I was fascinated. So fast forward, or going back, like even in high school, I did my first tournament when I was like 16.
Okay.
And I kept doing tournaments. Back then, you had to like fill out, like,
Paper
send
forms.
it in. Send in a money order. I don't want to. I don't want to like tell people how like I'm stone aged. Like, that's an old guy over there. But through that process to college, kept competing in fishing tournaments. Did the club thing, and then kind of moved my way up through the ranks, and fished. Just kept fishing and traveled and fished professionally for a very long time. And in 2017, I was able to start my business, Baztec, and it was very grassroots.
Sure.
Because I didn't know what I was doing, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it's hard.
Like a lot of entrepreneurs, I did not know what I was doing. So I just said, let's see how this turns out, and so here we are, man. Fast forward.
Yeah.
I left a few things out.
No, I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of really important details still, but I appreciate the depth of that, and the history behind getting to where you are, and how important it is for people to find really positive things to work on parts of their life. So, really appreciate that, and to sort of hear how you got to the idea of Baztec. If you don't mind, maybe saying a little bit more about sort of how that started, how it kicked off, and really the mission and the programming. Yeah.
So I started guiding some time ago. I would take people out, and that's kind of how it started, a little bit how it started. Yeah. One of my buddies had asked me, hey, Ray, do you only take a few clients out at a time? And I was like, yeah, normally, because, only a certain amount of people can fit on your boat. You can't take a bunch of people on your boat, 2, 3, 4 people, and that's it, But he's like, hey, have you ever thought about like maybe scaling it and like having groups of people? And I was like, maybe. Mm-hmm. And this is maybe back in 2015. And fast forward, actually, this is a really good story. Just north of here, right off the 694 bridge, East River Road right there was a gentleman. He was Latino because he was speaking Spanish, and he was teaching his two beautiful little daughters in Spanish. He was showing them how to use a spinning outfit.
Okay, yeah.
The flaw in God bless him for doing it. He was doing a great job. He was very passionate. but he was showing him incorrect technique. The reel is supposed to be pointed down, but he had it up.
Okay.
And the reason why, and there's a lot of reasons why, but basically the handle was on the wrong side.
Sure,
If
yeah.
he would have
yeah.
made that adjustment, it would have been fine.
Yeah.
But it gave, that guy, that gentleman, I wish I could know his name, or I wish I could, if he's watching this, hopefully one day he can, say, hey,
Yeah.
I was that guy, man. He's actually a lot responsible for inspiring me, because when I saw what he was doing, I really appreciated what he was doing, even though if it was wrong, even if it doesn't matter. But the fact that he was out there teaching it, and I was like, it gave me an idea. I was like, man, like I have all this knowledge. I've traveled all over the United States fishing and doing tournaments. I can teach this stuff. I speak multiple languages. So that's kind of where I got the idea.
Yeah.
And I sat down one day and I started writing a business plan. I created a logo. I created a mission statement. I started doing everything. And I started hanging out with other entrepreneurs. I learned business. It's funny. I didn't learn through fishing. I learned it actually working in the restaurant industry.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah, so I have a huge background in that, and also in sales and marketing. I used to work for a large beverage distribution company that does beverages and stuff, and that's where I really learned like business and stuff, and that's where I learned how to develop a business plan, a marketing strategy, and so on and so forth. So that's kind of how it came together. Wow. One of my homies, Antonio, he worked at this nonprofit, and I reached out to him one day. And I said, hey, are you still at this nonprofit? He's like, yeah, what's up, man? I was like, hey, I want to take some families out fishing. And he's like, oh, that's cool, man. It's like, I got this new project. I think it's going to be cool. Can you line up about 6 families? Because that's the capacity of equipment I had.
Sure.
That's all I had, and I had a certain amount of stuff. He's like, sure, I got you. And I told him, let's do it this day at this lake and be ready to go. And he's like, great. So he gets a sign-up sheet. Well, like a knucklehead, he left it open. He just left it.
Yeah.
And everybody signed up,
man.
When I show up to the dock, I mean, there's just a lot of people there, dude. And I was like, oh my God. So I called one of my homies. I was like, hey, when you get down here, are you on your way? He's like, yeah. I was like, go back and get more rods, man. We got way more people than we anticipated. And he's like, what? I'm like, yeah. I was like, just bring like 10 more rods, man.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And he's
That
like,
gives me heartburn just thinking about it as an event guy.
It still gives me heartburn now, So I was like, I managed, what I did is I just gave each family a rod. And then when he got there, I gave him more stuff. But I knew then that there was a tremendous appetite for this.
Yeah.
I always knew there was, but until I saw it, that was like, okay, this is nuts. And I just kind of fell in love with it. I was like, all right, I got something here.
Yeah.
And then from there, I started developing more like programming and creating a curriculum because I have all this stuff in my head. Like you can ask me, hey, Ray, it's we got a full moon. We have a, high river, bug hatch. We have a southeast wind from this much. And I start calculating it in my head. I'm like, yeah, Ned rig, green pumpkin, 1/4 ounce jig, whatever. I start like making those. I download, and then boom. The normal person is not obsessed maniac like me with fishing, right? So I'm like, I know this stuff because I've been through a lot of different ecosystems, a lot of different weather patterns that I fished all over the United States. So I'm familiar with it, and that's my favorite part of fishing. It's not necessarily it's teaching.
Okay.
It's getting into the vault and people asking me stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh yeah. So here's why that happens. And I'm like, it's like when I ask because I don't know too much about cars.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
But I'll ask my dad, hey, Dad, this is doing this. Oh, it's because of blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And he's just rambling it off,
Yeah.
But he's very good at that stuff.
Yeah.
He's an expert at that. He's an engineer, so he's good at that stuff.
Wow.
But yeah, so that's, man. So that's basically how we got started, back in 2017. And we started with, back then, I think I was only doing like 8 events a year.
Yeah.
And now we're up to like 70.
It's crazy. I look at the website sometimes and I think,
And dude, I don't have all the events up there
oh, wow.
because a lot of them are like not open to the public. So sometimes I don't even put all of them on there. Right. Because what we've have happened before is people will show up, you know what I mean? To like a specific community group. you know, and you got folks coming in, and it can be awkward sometimes. We want to avoid that, so that's why. Not that we're gonna like, oh, you can't do that, but well, I gotta come in. But next time, just know that this is specifically for this group, and check out our website. Come to our next events and stuff like that. So I had to kind of like take my foot off the gas a little bit, man, which is a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta be able to have a digestible amount of stuff on your events plate, because events work can be tiring in and of itself. Trying to lead people and answer questions all the time and all that sort of stuff. So you got a good staff now. It seems like too. You sort of staffed up.
We got a great pro staff. The pro staff is doing great. And last year we started a junior pro staff.
Cool.
Yeah, so of young men and women that we're developing through our partnerships. We want to develop them into expert anglers, and slowly. It's like when you go to a martial arts school, right? You get your white belt, and then you grow from there. And the only way you get good is you got to hit the gym, you got to practice, you got to train. Well, for us, it's time on the water, and they're great kids, and they're the future. So that's why this is a really important part of the business, because they are the next generation who's going to like push this forward and keep it going.
Yeah, carry the torch.
Carry the torch, because one day I want to be on my lake house with you, smoking a cigar and drinking a beer, man. And then let the kids kind of let them take it over.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. So
absolutely.
that's the hope.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, and a lot of what we've talked about too has just been about how to create more access for people who maybe traditionally are sort of left out of outdoor recreation. And I know that's a huge part of what Baztec does. But I'd love to hear more about sort of your approach for that and some of the focuses you have.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think one of the things is building awareness. If people don't know, you just don't know.
Yeah.
And you don't know what you don't know, right? It's that old cliche saying. What we've been able to do is create awareness, keep it very simple, and create opportunities. Well, what does that mean? Well, it means that opportunities are great, but it just can't be an opportunity. It has to be, you have to break barriers. And here's what I mean. People are intimidated by a lot of things. And it could be scary to do something by yourself. So it's better to do it collectively, right? And it's not only collectively, but if you do it collectively with a group of your peers, within your own culture, within your own community, you start eliminating those barriers, right? Then you get into, well, I don't speak the language. We speak the language. We speak your language. Oh, great. I don't have any equipment. Here's a rod and reel. I don't have a license, man. Oh, guess what? The Minnesota DNR gives us an educational permit to put on these events. Oh, so there's all these things that we do besides building awareness is knocking down those barriers.
Yeah.
And it's tedious. It is tedious, and it's hard. That's why this work is so hard.
Yeah.
I have a mentor. His name is Mr. Guy Bowling, and he said it's not hard work, it's heart work.
Yeah,
I love that. I was like, that's cool.
Yeah.
And it is, because it's both, really. It's both.
Yeah.
And those barriers really make it difficult for folks to access things. You know what I mean? However, I'll give you a perfect example. When Mary was at the event, she talked about the watershed and why clean water is so important.
Yeah.
Why clean? Because the first thing we do at our events is, we clean the park.
Yep.
Because you have to invest in your community. You have to invest in your parks and your ecosystem. And how you do that is you have to get down on your hands and knees and pick some stuff up and put it in a bag. And it's gross and nasty. But the cool thing is when your kids see you becoming that steward, they emulate that.
Yeah, they pick it up too.
They pick it up too. So those are some of the things, that we do to really create, to break down those barriers.
Yeah,
what
totally.
I mean? So
totally. And it's hard to, get people to that level of stewardship, right, of caring and doing something about the environment if they don't really have much interaction with it in the first place.
Right.
And especially interaction that's fun. We were just talking about
absolutely
going camping this weekend for me,
Yeah.
getting mauled by mosquitoes. that's the type of thing too, where
Right.
you're trying to cultivate an experience for somebody that is enjoyable, where they want to come back to it. So
Sure,
I
absolutely.
do think that like the way that Baztec approaches things in making events possible in the first place, creating that access, providing ways to do it without barriers, and then incorporating that stewardship is a really great way to get people to start to care about the river more.
Yeah.
And to have that part where people pick up trash and basically start to give a hoot in some ways, right?
Yeah, no, 100%.
It's really important. So
It is. Absolutely is.
yeah, and I think that seems like it's a key part of Baztec events in general. And you talked a little bit about like having functioning ecosystems, and I think a lot of people think about the fishing part of it, but this river pretty well. Why is it so important to have a robust, functioning ecosystem just outside of those fish you might be concerned about?
Well, there's so many factors. I mean, when you talk about like it affects businesses too, right? So if you have trash in an ecosystem, it just aesthetically looks bad, right? It smells bad. It looks bad. People don't even want to be near that stuff.
Yeah.
So they're not going to paddleboard. They're not going to kayak. So that there's a lot of small businesses that affects, right? There's a business along the river that affects. It affects fishing licenses. People like, oh, it's gross on there. I don't want to go down there and fish, right? Like, then you miss out on sales of fishing licenses. Well, if people are not buying fishing licenses, guess what? They're not buying also fishing rods and reels and bait and so on and so forth. So it is a lot of things that affects, and it's just not good. So it's incredibly important to have clean water.
Yeah, definitely.
Like number one, from top to bottom. I mean, if you have clean water, and you see it out here with the birds.
Sure.
That's how you know you have clean water.
Yeah.
It's the bird. I can't tell you how many. Just loaded with birds.
Yeah, waterfowl and all that.
Waterfowl, freaking the graylings and all that. Like, it's crazy. Those particular birds, they forage on fish. That's their primary forage.
Oh, yeah.
So if you have eagles, they'll eat anything, really.
Yeah.
They'll eat anything. My buddy James, he's like, oh, man, that's a scavenger bird. And I was like, how dare you talk about the eagle that way, the American bald eagle. Yeah. But when you have clean water, you have healthy birds, and that's where it starts. It really affects everything else.
Yeah.
So it's really, really important from top to bottom to have clean water and have folks in the community invest in clean water. I mean, you guys do a phenomenal work.
We try.
Yeah. Everyone from other state agencies and stuff, they do a really good job, I think, of keeping things clean. And through our efforts and through everyone's efforts collectively, I think we can keep the river pretty clean, man, and make the fishing better, make the healthy birds, healthy fish, help the economy out. So it's a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And it takes everybody,
It does.
And I think, that whole world view is really important when it comes to thinking about protecting water and ecosystems. And I think we are pretty lucky, to have as much fresh water as we do here. And that probably plays into why people care so much about it too. I wanted to ask, because I hear some people talk sometimes about non-game fish. So, thinking about an ecosystem too, like, a lot of people go out for game fish, which might be bass or walleye, right? Those are probably the two biggest.
Pike, muskie,
yeah. Even sunfish, crappie
Sunfish,
sometimes. Yeah. So,
Crappie, sunfish.
like, what are non-game or rough fish, and why are they important?
Yeah, well, for example, carp. Carp are very much needed. They actually eat a lot of the cotton seeds.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
They just come up and they just devour that. The ducks do the same thing. So it's good.
Yeah.
It's good and bad because they disturb, the bottom silt, and they, that's a complete. We could do a whole show on that stuff.
Sure. Yeah.
Sulfurous and how that occurs, but rough fish are good. They actually can control the population of other fish. You know what I mean? Like when you put certain fish in certain ecosystem, they just devour.
Yeah.
Like all they do is it's carnage, man.
Right.
They just eat like crazy.
Which can be the carp in some situations.
Right. So that's why you put a muskie or pike. That's why certain state agencies will put certain fish in certain ecosystems to regulate.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Those fish species. But, carp, burbot, drum. All those fish are essential. You know, they regulate each other. They police each other, if you will. And, some of those, a misconception too is a lot of these rough fish you can't eat. That's not true, man. Like, eel pout or burbot, it's in the cod family.
Oh, is it?
People,
Okay.
yeah, and people are like, wait a minute, cod, I love cod.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, get yourself some burbot, and people used to, the eel pout festival, they used to just throw them out. And
gosh, yeah.
And now it's like a delicacy. Now they actually have, like I think on Mille Lacs, they have like a regulation on them.
Yeah.
And that never existed.
Sure. Okay. Okay.
On the river, I think it's the same. You can keep as many as you want. But I think that's a good thing for folks in the community to keep rough fish because they're good to eat. There's sucker, fish. I mean, there's all kinds of different fish species that are just really good to consume. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
If you can't catch game fish, eat the rough fish.
Right. And yeah, I mean, good to know too that the role they play in sort of keeping everything in check. And
absolutely.
I think that's really important stuff to hear. It's a lot more than just the ones you think about or hear about.
Right.
And all those species are important, even from the big ones, the sheephead, that type of stuff, right? Even down to like darters and things like that.
Red horse, and there's buffalo fish and stuff. And believe it or not, some of those fish are hard to catch.
Yeah.
They can be difficult. What I like is the birds don't care either. Going back, they fish too.
Yeah, they do.
They fish a lot more than I do.
Yeah, they do. Yeah,
like a lot.
Yeah,
so they
all day.
They don't care. They're like, whatever it is, if it's swimming, I'm eating it.
Yeah.
So the birds really help with that ecosystem and keeping it in check. So.
Sure. Yeah. Very cool. Awesome. Great. Well, let's talk a little bit about fishing itself. Sort of thinking about the cultural history of it, right? Like, I know that fishing seems to have a place in most cultures around the world. And when a lot of folks are starting to get into it here and they're lacking those resources, I think you often will meet people who might be first or second generation immigrants and maybe bringing some of that cultural stuff with them. Do you run into like certain perspectives around fishing or stories that people would tell about how much it meant to them from other places or to their family?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, ever since there have been human beings and civilizations, civilizations, no matter the civilization, there's a few exceptions, but they've always lived on or around water. Really important.
Yeah.
When you look at like, the St. Croix, that river, that's where that was all indigenous peoples. Even here, it used to be all indigenous peoples.
They're still here,
and it's still here. Yeah, correct. And when we have conversations with folks from other countries, what's really cool is to hear how there's these commonalities and this synergy to like their experience from their homeland to here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And they're like, you always hear, oh, my father or my grandfather or my grandmother used to go down to the river and wash clothes. Because I know that because I listened to my mom, and when she was talking about, I just had my parents visit, and also my aunt, uncle from Mexico, and they were saying how like my grandma used to wash clothing on the river, and I'm like, wow, that's cool, man. I was like, you could do that? And I didn't know. I was like, you just didn't put it in the washer? Well, I'm a spoiled American kid. I didn't know how to do that. And those kind of connections. And then like, dude, check this out too. I did not know that my great grandfather was a professional diver.
Wow.
He would dive into from the cliffs into these lakes and rivers, like super deep.
Wow.
Yeah, it's wild. I didn't know that. So again, all these connections, like. This is how we used to fish. We would use nets, or we would do this, or traps, and this is the kind of fish that we used to eat, and this is how we prepared it, and it's no matter what community you talk to, it's always the same cool story.
Sure. Yeah.
And it's about like, this is the way my family used to do it, or this is how my people do it, or this is how we do it back home, and they want to do that here now, and it's really cool to listen to those stories and be able to like listen to them and then like ask questions.
Yeah.
Like, hey, so how did you guys fish, or how did you prepare it, or how many fish, did you catch a day?
Yeah.
Like stuff like that. What kind of bait did you use?
Yeah.
Was it good? Like how did it taste? What kind of spices, or how did you prepare it? Stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it's always really, really cool to hear the stories, because there's so much depth to that.
Yeah, definitely.
Because then you're talking stories, then you talk folklore, and then family recipes, and there's all this beautiful, just this beautiful conversation that just happens organically when you start talking to folks. It's actually really cool, man.
Yeah.
I enjoy that part of the process, or part of the journey from doing this work.
Yeah, yeah. It's food is culture, and fishing is part of that food and the culture too.
100%, man.
Very cool to, I'm sure, gather all those things, and fishing really, can become this like cultural meeting point across different cultures. So
Yeah, absolutely. It breaks barriers.
yeah.
That's what it does too. It just, food and fishing and the river, it's for everyone. Everyone can enjoy it. That's the best part of it.
Yeah, very cool. Okay, let's get a little bit more into the river and fishing in particular, since I know that you have spent a lot more time than most people focusing on fishing on the river. So to me, it seems more complex, and I don't know why I think that, but can you talk about how it might be different, and from lake fishing, I guess, in particular, and
sure.
more on that.
So the stretch of river that's literally right behind us, I was telling the crew here when you guys came in, that I literally have caught a bunch of fish right behind us, and I can't believe it. I'm like looking up, I'm like, hey, I used to fish that spot right there, right by the bridge. I caught a 3-pounder right there. The question in regards to being complex, it is, it can be, and what makes the river complicated to fish, it's not really the weather. And I'll give you an example. Like, you're on a lake, and when it rains, right before it rains, fish turn on. Barometer drops, fish turn on. It's lights out. Every cast you can catch a fish. Normally, after a storm or after a big front, you have high pressure, which is bluebird sky, sun, and everyone thinks that's perfect time to fish. It's the worst time to fish. It's terrible, because fish can see the flaws in your presentation. Their visual acuity is incredible. Wow. So they can see things, and they're like, that looks fake. That looks weird. Really? That doesn't look normal.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's harder to fool them, because depending on what you're fishing for. But if you're fishing for an apex predator, they know. They can see it, they can smell it, they can feel it. That's on lakes, and that makes it really difficult. Here on the river, fronts don't matter, because you have current. True. Because what fronts do on lakes, it changes the water temperature, changes the thermocline. So thermocline may rise, it may fall, and fish move with the thermocline. And thermocline is basically a layer of oxygen that moves, vertically, and then fish will move with that thermocline. That's why you have suspended fish. They won't bite sometimes. You could dangle the worm in front of them. They're like, worm, you're bothering me. Get away from me. It's really frustrating for the angler.
Yeah.
On a river, that's not the case, because food is sometimes scarce. It's a lot more competitive.
Really?
So you put something by them, and they just hammer it. They just aggressively. The other thing to direct your question, what makes it hard? What makes river fishing hard? There's one thing, when the river's up, like when it's high like it is now, the rule of thumb, and we teach this to our folks that come into our programs, say when the river's up, the fish have more real estate, more food, more places to hide, more places to go, more places to find food. They spread out. When the river is low, they concentrate. So they're harder to find. But when you find them, every cast is like it's insane. It's so much fun.
Wow.
But that's the give and take. The other thing is when the river's low, it's dangerous. it can be dangerous. You can hit, you could hit a rock. You could get hung up on a sandbar. It becomes a little bit more dangerous if you don't know how to navigate. Like this stretch here, there's a lot of rock. It's gnarly. It's very dangerous.
Yeah.
So you have to know what you're doing. When it's high, it's also dangerous because if you fall off a boat or like there's a lot of things. The current is very dangerous. So that's what makes river fishing so complicated, but at the same time very simple. Knowing when it's high, I'm throwing baits that are moving. We teach that a lot. When I was working at the DNR, we did seminars, and they're like, "Man, how are you able to catch a lot of fish?" And I said, "I move a lot, and I'm power fishing." Which, for the folks that don't know what that means, basically think of like a basketball player that's just shooting, moving and shooting from the 3-point line, and just keep shooting. It doesn't matter anywhere on the court, just shoot.
Yeah.
Trying to just get it in. When you're fishing, you're casting and casting and casting and casting. All of a sudden, boom, there's one. Boom, there's another one. Then you stop and you're like, they're right there. Then you slow down. But in order to find them, you need moving baits.
Got to cover more territory.
Yeah, so you have to cover a lot more water because the water's up. The other thing, I did a video on YouTube and Instagram. I think we put it on there. Drainages. I know you and your scientists study drainages. Well, so do fish. Yeah, so do fish. They're not scientists. They don't have masters or PhDs like you guys do, but they are very smart. When that water is coming out of the drainage, they'll sit right by the drainage and let the food come to them because it's bugs and human food and stuff. They don't care.
Yeah.
It's free.
Yeah.
And they just sit there and they just eat.
Wow.
Yeah. So we did a video on that, and you could throw anything and they'll eat it.
Wow. That's crazy.
It's pretty cool, man. And I learned that from a good friend of mine, my buddy Patty Whalen, who's an incredible angler. So he taught me that technique. This is years ago. He taught me that stuff. And when it rained, I would go to the drainages,
Wow.
So there's a lot of ways to fish it, but that's just to kind of give you a few rules of thumb. When it's up, fish a lot of water, throw moving baits. When the water's low, slow down. You can still power fish, but they'll be more concentrated. So,
Sure.
yeah.
Okay.
So
Wow, that's a great answer, and yeah, I mean, it sounds both complex and simple.
simple,
at
yeah,
times.
yeah.
You
It's
can
both.
figure it out.
It's
so.
both. Yeah, it's both.
Yeah, wow. Really, really cool to hear that. And, I know you mentioned about some flooding issues and stuff too. I mean,
Yes.
have you seen anything in the last week or two? I know the water's probably come up quite a bit and might more so in the next few days. Like, is that going to affect what you're going to do if you go out there anytime soon?
It does. What it does, you have to use heavier weights to get your bait down.
Okay.
And to keep it down. Because here's another thing I failed to mention. The current is only in the top 6 to 8 feet.
Okay.
It's not the entire, channel that is like moving. It's the top layer of the river. The bottom, it's not. If it moves, it's real slow. It's usually just at the very top. So when the river's high, the other thing that happens is those fish will hug the bottom, belly down to the bottom, and they just sit there and they look for crayfish.
Okay.
So that's what we throw. And in order for you to get your bait down there, you need to use bigger weights. The problem with sometimes a bigger weight is feeling it you can feel it, but it's, you can get hung up.
Sure. Yeah.
So you're playing this game. Like, do I get hung up? But I can feel the bottom, but I might get hung up on the rock. So you got to just play around with how much weight, depending on how much current.
Yeah.
So you can go I use like a 3/16 ounce or a 1/4 ounce. We always use a non-lead, non-toxic steel. We use tungsten mostly.
Okay. Yeah.
And it works, but you got to use heavier stuff to get it down on the bottom. Because if not, you throw your bait on, it's just gonna.
Yeah.
The current is gonna just take.
Okay. Yeah.
So you got to get down to the bottom and using heavier weights.
Yeah.
And thinner line.
Sure. Yeah.
Because what happens, you got thick line, that's a lot of drag.
Yeah.
Thinner line is not as much drag.
It cuts through a little bit.
But guess what? What if you hook into a big fish?
Breaks.
And you got a different set of problems here.
Right, yeah.
So it's this game you have to play.
Yeah.
It's just like, okay, do I throw my micro 4-pound test? I know the current won't take it. man, but if I catch a 5-pounder, there, break me off.
Yeah.
So and because there are enormous fish in this river,
Yeah, I imagine.
we've caught them.
Yeah.
And I always tell my staff, I'm like, there's bigger ones in there than that, and we're talking 21 inches, 22-inch smallmouth.
Wow.
We're talking mammoth fish, and they're just as wide as they are long.
Oh my gosh.
It's scary, man.
Yeah.
They're enormous. They're beautiful.
Yeah.
They're beautiful fish, but yeah, that's give or take kind of like the simple science, of fishing and what to do when it's high.
Sure.
And it's hard. It's just that's just what it is. You just have to incrementally make those small little adjustments.
Yeah. Sort of always calculating, recalculating.
Absolutely.
And a little bit of the art too of just sort of, figuring out how to make it happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Very cool. Well, what specifically do you like to fish for in the river around here?
My favorite 2 species, I have 3 species that I really love. Number 1, smallmouth.
Okay.
I love smallmouth bass. They're an incredibly curious fish. They are they're not as mean as they're curious as they are mean, but I think they're more curious than anything, and it's just an incredible fish to catch. That catfish is another fun fish to catch. You have here you have flatheads and you have channel cats. You also have bullheads, which is in the catfish family. But I would say channels, because I like to eat. A lot of people don't know this, but I love catfish. I love to eat catfish. It's so good, man.
Yeah.
So good. And walleye would probably be my third.
Sure.
It's so much fun to catch walleyes too.
Yeah.
A little harder to catch. They're finickier.
Sure.
They're harder to catch, but when you catch them, man, they taste good too.
Yeah, and that's sort of the quintessential eating fish in the area up here in the upper Midwest for sure. And so you do catch a fair amount of walleye out here.
Yeah, we catch a few walleyes. When we specifically walleye fish.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we catch a few walleyes.
Might take a bit more work, but
It does. They're a little finickier, and you have to work for them. You know what I mean? They're not as curious.
yeah,
They're finicky and but it's still the challenge.
sure,
That's why it's called fishing.
right,
You know what I
exactly.
mean? That's why it's called fishing.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Very cool. Well, the favorite fish you mentioned there, if you don't mind, what are your favorite techniques, I guess, maybe for each one? And I know it can vary by the weather and all the things you mentioned, but if things are, ideal, what's your favorite sort of technique for?
Yeah, and I brought a prop.
Sure. Yeah. Let's see them.
I got this is a largemouth bass. I brought him. My smallmouth bass, I couldn't find him, but he'll keep us company for a little bit.
Sure.
But my favorite technique, when I learned how to do it, it's called walk the dog. That sounds silly. And this is my topwater tackle box. It's all faded out. I've had this thing for a long time. This technique is, if I can find them, I got a lot of baits here. Here we go. So I'm going to hook myself. The reason why I like this presentation the most is because what this bait does, right? It has a knock in it. And what it does, it zigs and it zags.
Cool.
So it does, and you can make it do different things. So you could make it go real, like lazy, or you can make it's the cadence. You can make it panic.
Wow.
So it all depends on your wrist and the cadence. When they're hitting this, there's nothing better in the world, because they will jump out of the water and like devour this with extreme prejudice.
Wow.
It's so much fun. But this is my favorite technique. As far as baits, like this in my opinion has to be it. Our staff really likes this next one, which is the Chapo. And it's basically a whopper popper with a prop on the back, and you just pull it, it makes this like boop, 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 boop sound. They just can't handle it. It's so much fun, and they devour this bait too. So me personally, walk the dog, hands down. But my staff, if you ask them, this is what they
That
like.
one?
Yeah, this is what they like. So that's where we throw like the favorite techniques. And I think the reason why, Adam, people like, thank you for asking that.
Yeah.
Let me show you guys that. I think the reason why people like those techniques the most is because you can see it.
Yeah.
Because it's like, oh my God. And all of a sudden you're just like, oh God. And it's go time.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's go time. And it's so much fun. It's visual. You can hear it and you can see it right away. It's so much fun.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, we are visual creatures in that way, so I can
Yes.
definitely see it just.
Yeah, all of a sudden, wow.
Right.
It's crazy.
Right.
Man.
Yeah.
It's so
That's a
much-
lot more fun than being like, oh,
I think I got,
Yeah.
it's just a branch.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah,
But
well-
when you see it, it's so much fun.
that's cool. Yeah.
I have a video. I have a video out here. I can share it with you guys of me with a prop bait and bringing it in. It's right down here, and all of a sudden the smallmouth just smashes it.
Wow.
So much fun.
Wow.
Yeah. If you guys need that footage, let me know.
Yeah.
Be happy to
we'll
share
check it
with
out.
you
Yeah.
guys.
Yeah. No, I'd love
Be
to
happy.
see that.
Be happy to share that so you guys can see it. So.
Cool. Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I didn't realize the acoustic part of it was so important too, like with the
Yeah.
things you were just describing. Yeah.
Well, the way sound travels in water is incredible. You could be a couple hundred yards away, and you can hear people on a lake.
Sure.
Like if they were like right by you, and you're like, "Who's that?" Oh, that's the Johnsons, across the lake, and you're like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah.
They're like right there. Same
Yeah.
thing on the river.
Sure.
So that sound, it really travels
Yeah.
in water.
Yeah, no, that's super important to think about.
Absolutely.
Very cool. So, as a part of your work, of course, it's working with people who are new to fishing. And,
Yeah.
I guess just for any listeners out there who are thinking about getting into fishing, do you have any real simple tips for beginners to think about, whether it's getting set up or just techniques or anything like that, to consider, just if they're going to get into fishing?
Yeah, that's a great question. If you want to get into fishing, I think the number one thing is just keep it simple and watch a few videos. I mean, you can go down the YouTube rabbit hole of like, because everyone's going to have a different way of doing this and different way of doing that, which is great. I'm glad the fishing community is out there putting content out. But if you're going to start with credible experts.
Yeah.
Whoever, and you'll know who they are. Our organization has a few of them, and we say that humbly. We've worked our butt off to get where we're at and be able to produce the content that we do, and we're very proud of that. But I recommend people to check out, you guys, Mississippi Watershed. I recommend, the DNR, some YouTubers who are very well known that are very good. The Linder brothers, Babe Winkleman, Ron Sherab, I mean, there's so many great anglers out there. Check out a few other stuff and don't overcomplicate things. And if you're going to go out fishing, don't go far. You don't have to go up north.
Yeah.
That's a misconception. You can come down to the river and catch a lot of fish. You can go to in your watershed, I think it's the Loring
Pond.
Yeah, dude, there's a lot of fish in there.
Really?
Yeah, there's big crappies and bluegills in there, man.
Wow. That's
Yeah, so you don't have to go far.
Yeah.
If you live in downtown, all you got to do is walk. There's a
Right.
dock right there.
Yeah.
Go there and fish, and keep it simple. Just get a bobber, a weight, and a hook, get some worms, or, why overcomplicate it?
See what happens.
Yeah, just keep it
It's
simple.
supposed to be fun and simple.
It's supposed to be simple. And also, go to your local tackle shops. Joe Sporting Goods is a good one. There's a bunch of, different places you can go to. And if you ask people there, hey, I want to catch panfish, what do you recommend? They'll set you up with something, and you're like, what's your budget? And I got about $50 to spend. It doesn't take a whole lot.
Sure.
It's just a matter of try to be specific. And when you go into these places, you're not going to have an idea because you go into a store and it's every rod and reel.
Sure. Yeah.
And it's all these colors of lures. It could be overwhelming for people. It really can.
Yeah.
So just keep it simple. Buy something simple, something you can afford, ask some questions, watch a few videos, and go out there and have fun.
Yeah.
Keep it simple.
Yeah, that's great advice. Yeah, and I know there's also lots of trends in fishing in general, so I'm going to throw just a
Yeah.
opinion question at you here.
Sure.
What's one trend or practice in fishing that you've seen that you would like to maybe see change or improve, and one that you really like and would like to see more of, I guess?
Yeah, I would say in fishing or just out on the water, people with boats having better etiquette,
Okay.
having better boat etiquette, not like zooming by you,
Yeah.
creating all these wakes. Like I'll give you an example, like if I'm on the river and if I see people on kayaks, I slow down because you're welcome. And all the paddle boaters and all the kayakers, you know, you don't say something too, and as boaters, you should know better than to zoom by a kayak at full speed. If you see them, they're not hard, they're bright yellow, man. Not hard to, you can see it. Slow down.
Yeah.
You're having you have a great thing going on. You're in a boat on a river.
Yeah.
Why are you in a hurry for?
Right.
Slow down.
Right.
And let people pass you by. I like to see more of that. I think that would be good. Just more
consideration.
Yeah, more consideration, more education on that. I think that would be good, and for safety reasons more.
Yeah.
So it's all about safety for
Absolutely.
us. Another trend that's interesting is magnet fishing. You see it a lot on here.
Okay.
And I actually really like. At first, I'm just gonna be honest. I was annoyed. I was like, "Hey, man, what are you making all that racket for? Throwing all that stuff." But then I was like, "Wait a minute, they're cleaning the river."
Okay, so they're picking up metal pieces and stuff.
Dude, I saw a guy pick out a bike,
Wow.
pick out like a part of a garbage can.
Yeah.
Oh man, so much stuff.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Sort of a divergent answer there on a different type of fishing, but we need more of that, I'm sure.
Different kind of fishing, and I was like, that's kind of cool that they're doing that. It's a new trend, obviously.
Sure, yeah.
And people keep asking me about it. I'm like, I don't know. I don't. I'm a different kind of angler,
Right.
But the magnet fishing is becoming more popular.
Yeah. Wow.
So I think that's kind of cool.
Yeah. Who knows what treasures the river holds down there?
And you guys might get some phone calls about that.
Yeah, we might.
Hey, I found a bunch of bikes. Here you go. It's yours.
Yeah.
Next thing you know,
We're gonna have too many on our hands.
right, your manager's gonna be like, "Hey, man, what are these bikes doing here?"
Yeah.
Like, oh, this guy magnet fishing. He brought us all the junk from the river.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Because, dude, it could happen.
Yeah, totally.
Someone could do that. Some
Yeah.
very nice person doing a
Right.
stewardship deal.
Yep.
All of a sudden, it's like, yeah, man, but why'd you bring it here? Like,
Right, yeah.
Take it to the scrapyard.
We got a lot of scrapyards around here, if you are listening.
Yes, absolutely.
But we appreciate the effort.
Yeah, we do appreciate the effort. Thank you for keeping the river clean. Is what's up.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's fun.
Super cool. That's awesome. Well, I don't really have many other questions, but is there anything else you'd like to share about the work you're doing, or shout outs to people you work with, or anything like that?
Wow. Yeah. Well, shout out to my team.
Okay.
They're a great bunch of people, very dedicated, and I work for them. They don't work for me. I always tell them that. I work for you. You don't work for me. I think it's really important that they know that, because as leaders in the community, we work for the people. That's our job, is to serve others. And for those that are listening, if folks are out there that are looking for volunteer opportunities, we are definitely always looking for volunteers. We have a lot of volunteers, but we could always use more. You know what I mean? Yeah. And it's always fun to meet new people that care about the community, care about the river, care about clean water, stewardship, and conservation. And it's just cool hanging out with people, man, like new people, and this year we have a lot of events, a lot with you guys, and we have just a lot.
Yeah.
And we invite folks in the community to come on and sign up.
That's great. Yeah.
Sign up. It's free. We bring the pro staff with the professionals. We bring the rods and reels. We bring the baits. We have the shelters. Sometimes the partner organizations even have food. You know what I mean? Like Felix Martinez, big shout out to him from, I say Casa de Esperanza. I still have it in my head.
Yep.
Esperanza United. He was cooking out their burgers and brats and stuff like that.
Fun. Yeah.
Yeah, man. So that was a lot of fun. So for folks out there, We definitely appreciate that. And, you know, through the nonprofit side, if folks are looking for, we always get a lot of phone calls about donations, and not only like equipment, but also other like funding.
Sure.
So that like we're always open to that. If people want to like, hey, I got some old rods and reels, you know, would you guys take them? Sure. You know, so a lot of times we refurbish that stuff and we give it away.
That's great.
Yeah. So like at this event, we gave a lot of rods and reels away that are donated to us.
Yeah.
You know, so when people donate, when they make a contribution, we use that money and we'll go to the stores and we'll buy gift cards from like Joe's Sporting Goods or Shields or different, you know, REI, you know, and we'll actually give away gift cards.
Wow.
We'll buy rods and reels. Sometimes we're like, you know what, let's not give away this older stuff. Let's buy new stuff.
Sure. Yeah.
Because we got somebody donated like a lot of money. So like, let's buy some stuff and give it away, you know? So businesses have been incredibly kind to us and generous with gift cards and equipment and all kinds of stuff. So it's been great, and know that the dollars and the equipment go into the community.
Sure.
Like they go directly back into the community, and it's just an honor to be able to serve the folks here, man. So and I can't thank you enough, man, for giving me the platform to, you know, talk about this and you know, just build that more of that awareness and let people know that we're here and that we're going to continue doing the work.
Yeah.
Continue doing the work.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for all the work you're doing to bring people to the river, to get them to think about the river and connect with it and steward it. So very much appreciate what you're doing. If people want more information about Baztec, is there a website?
Yeah. You can go to, excuse me, let me take a little drink of water.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, get one too.
You can edit that out.
Mississippi River water. It's treated.
It's good stuff. All right. If folks want more information, they can go to our website, www.baztecmn.com. You could email me directly at ray@baztecmn.com. And I answer all the emails. There's nobody else. Well, I mean, there's other staff, but I answer everything because I want it to come directly from me.
Sure.
You know, so.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, thank you, Ray. Really appreciate it. And thanks to all of our listeners. If you want to learn more about MWMO as well, please visit our website. And you can also find the podcast there at mwmo.org/podcast. Thanks, Ray.
Thank you. Appreciate it.